Welcome to the Restricted Handling Daily Intel Brief. Let's dig in. Here's what's been going on in Russia in the last 24 hours. Ukraine is facing one of its most serious political and military leadership debates since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. President Volodymyr Zelensky is under growing pressure after removing Defense Minister Mykhailo Fedorov, a 35-year-old reformer who had become the public face of Ukraine's push toward a technology-driven military built around drones, artificial intelligence, and battlefield data. That decision exposed a much deeper divide inside Ukraine. On one side are people who believe this war is showing the future of warfare, where innovation, speed, and technology can offset Russia's manpower advantage. On the other side is the traditional military establishment, represented by Commander-in-Chief General Oleksandr Syrskyi, which critics argue still relies too heavily on older Soviet-style command structures. Thousands of Ukrainians have taken to the streets demanding change. The protests include veterans and active-duty soldiers, which is particularly significant because Ukraine's military has generally remained one of the country's most trusted institutions. Zelensky has been meeting with commanders and political leaders, saying decisions about the army will be made. The challenge for him is that this is not simply about replacing one general with another. The bigger question is whether Ukraine can adapt its military culture fast enough for the kind of war it is fighting. And that debate connects directly to another major problem: manpower. Ukraine is now entering its fifth year of war, and the strain is becoming increasingly visible. Ukrainian authorities report more than 600 attacks against military recruitment officers. There have been stabbings, confrontations in the streets, and growing anger over forced mobilization practices. The Ukrainian term "bizification" has become shorthand for the controversy, referring to mobile recruitment teams accused of aggressively detaining men and sending them into service. Ukrainian officials acknowledge the problem. They also argue they are dealing with an extremely difficult reality. The country needs more soldiers, but fewer people are volunteering as the war drags on. One Ukrainian veteran summarized the dilemma bluntly: everyone understands soldiers need to be replaced, but everyone is afraid to die. That is the human cost of a long war that neither side appears ready to end. Now, while Ukraine is dealing with these internal challenges, Russia continues trying to apply pressure through its missile campaign. Over the weekend, Russia launched one of its largest ballistic missile attacks of the war against Kyiv. The strike damaged residential areas, civilian infrastructure, and logistics facilities. Ukrainian officials said Russia used a combination of ballistic missiles and drones, while Ukraine's air defenses intercepted many of the incoming weapons. The broader strategic issue is the growing pressure on Ukraine's air defenses. Russia appears to be taking advantage of shortages in Patriot interceptor missiles and increasingly relying on ballistic systems that are harder to stop. Ukrainian officials say the country needs more interceptors every day, and Zelensky has emphasized that missile defense is now one of Ukraine's highest priorities. The attack also highlights the changing nature of this war. Russia is trying to overwhelm Ukrainian defenses from the air, while Ukraine is increasingly taking the fight deeper into Russian territory. Over the past several days, Ukraine has expanded strikes against Russian logistics, energy, and industrial infrastructure. One notable target was Wildberries, Russia's largest online retailer, which Ukraine says has been involved in supplying sanctioned components and equipment connected to drone production. This is strategically important because Ukraine is attempting to impose costs on the Russian war machine far beyond the battlefield. Kyiv is targeting the systems that keep Russia's military operating: fuel, transportation networks, industrial capacity, and supply chains. The message is clear: if Russia can strike Ukrainian cities every night, Ukraine wants Moscow to understand that Russian territory and infrastructure are not untouchable. The Black Sea is becoming another major pressure point. Ukraine has continued attacking Russian naval and logistics assets around Crimea, attempting to make the peninsula increasingly difficult for Moscow to supply. At the same time, Russia has intensified attacks on Ukrainian ports. A Russian strike hit the Guinea-Bissau-flagged cargo ship Golden Leo near Odessa while it was carrying grain. The crew included sailors from India and Syria, highlighting how this conflict is increasingly affecting countries far beyond Europe. There are also broader economic implications. Ukrainian strikes disrupted operations at the Caspian Pipeline Consortium terminal near Novorossiysk, a major route for Kazakhstan's oil exports. That means the consequences of the maritime conflict are now extending into global energy markets. Meanwhile, Europe is confronting a major defense problem exposed by the war. For decades, many European countries relied heavily on U.S. capabilities for long-range strike, intelligence, and precision weapons. The war in Ukraine has shown how important those capabilities are. NATO members are now moving to develop their own deep strike missile systems, committing tens of billions of dollars over the next decade. The problem is timing. Many of Europe's advanced missile programs will not arrive until the 2030s. Countries like Germany are looking for faster solutions, including partnerships with defense companies that can produce cheaper, mass-producible systems more quickly. This is one of the biggest lessons of Ukraine. Modern warfare is not just about having the most advanced weapon. It is about having enough of them, being able to replace them, and having the industrial base to keep going. Finally, Russia continues strengthening relationships abroad while tightening control at home. Russian President Vladimir Putin met with North Korean Foreign Minister Choi Son-hui and thanked Pyongyang for its support in the war. North Korea has provided Russia with weapons, ammunition, and personnel, while Moscow has reportedly provided economic assistance and military technology in return. The relationship is becoming one of the clearest examples of Russia building alternative partnerships as it faces increasing isolation from the West. Inside Russia, pressure continues against remaining opposition voices. Anti-war politician Boris Nadezhdin announced that he was ending his political campaign after being labeled a foreign agent and facing legal pressure. Russian authorities also detained a space researcher from Roscosmos on treason allegations, continuing a broader pattern of targeting scientists, academics, and critics. Thanks for listening. The headlines will keep coming, so we'll keep sorting signal from noise. Find the daily written brief at restrictedhandling.substack.com, and we'll be back with more tomorrow.